Much shorter countdown from now on. I edited those down last night. Let's see how it goes. Hey, everybody. Scott Stevens here. Let's start with the full screen first before we pop over and, and look at these other issues. There are curious things going on across the planet. I think one of the most, I don't want to say alarming, but unusual news events I saw over the course of the day was this an incredible lightning strike that was recorded by one of the GOES satellites. And the thing was as long as 440 miles. That is an incredible distance for, usually you're seeing them from the cloud to the ground or maybe arcing out a little bit. A bolt from the blue, the definition of that is simply being a bolt outside from essentially the immediate surrounding of the cloud. But when we have one of these lightning strikes, that can go hundreds of miles, then you've got to wonder, might there be something else that's changing inside and within the planet? And we'll kind of take a look at that. There's at least two tweets regarding with this that we'll look at, and then I'll probably do some additional. Well, I've got a hunch as to why it happened where it did, and then we'll probably. Oh, I know we'll get into that tomorrow because it's been a topic that I've been fascinated with for a bit of it for some time, because it's a very, very large global event that a lot of people have been talking about, and we just have no idea on the time frame. And that is the migration of the magnetic poles from where they have been to new locations, and their movement has been increasingly rapid, and in fact, almost increasing in a geometric speed. Meaning that when they do flip, when it does happen, in geologic terms, it's going to be very, very fast. In human time spans, over a matter of days and weeks, that'll be an unprecedented event, and we might have seen a bit of a precursor to that. But first of all, let's start over here with the dust. You can see that dust roaring through, well, not roaring, but obscuring Cuba, Jamaica, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, and then some of the Caicos and some of these other islands, the Bahamas, begin to get into a little more transparent atmosphere. But we still managed to get a few thunderstorms to pop up through the Saharan desert, and that has given us a little bit of hope that we're not going to be just droughted out or dried out as long as this air mass remains in place, which could be a little bit of time. Look at you guys coming in over there. Good to see a little bit of a group of you showing up. Risa, Robin, Vicky, Sasha, and the group. Good to see you there. Yeah, this is kind of the story. The mega flash is going to be the hashtag with this particular guy. 440.6, that kind of a resolution, 440.6 miles long in a distance, and an additional strike that lasted 16.73 seconds. That is a lot of voltage, a lot of current run through that connection that lasted for more than a quarter of a minute. And I can't tell you exactly what strike in here. If this GIF, I'll probably download it, dissect it, so we can look at it individual frame by frame. But I just came across this information about 2 o'clock this afternoon, and I'm like, this is a very curious thing. And my reply to it was that the reason why might have something to do with what's called the Southern Atlantic magnetic anomaly. And as we see these poles, the magnetic part of it, not so much the geophysical pole, where we've got the Earth rotating around, they are linked, but that realignment has not happened yet. And when that happens, that will be a great and terrible day. And we're not ready to go there just yet. But this might be an indication that these shifting and weakening portions of the magnetic field and across the Southern Atlantic, which is not far from where this happened, Uruguay here, you got up into Brazil and Argentina over into here, right in through here, this is where these strikes happened. And this over here, right through the southern part of the Atlantic, is where the magnetic field literally is collapsing. and it is allowing space weather in. When satellites go through there, they're subjected to much greater fields of radiation. The astronauts also have to hunker down as they're in their 90-minute rotations around the planet when one of their orbits is anticipated, well, is going to go through that zone, that they have to take extra precautions because the shield of the planet is not completely down, but it is profoundly weaker in that location. And I'm just wondering if aren't some other energies that are now beginning to take advantage of that. All right, we'll leave that behind and come back to it tomorrow as we'll look a little more closely at that South Atlantic anomaly. Talking about weather, whiplash, Scandinavia currently has the highest geopotential heights, which means the middle part of the atmosphere has swollen because it's warm. So the highest heights in the northern hemisphere, as well as correspondingly above normal temperatures, but at about a week's time is predicted to have the lowest heights across the northern hemisphere with below normal temperatures. So what that essentially means, and the squiggly maps with the green and the oranges that I show you, that's what I'm kind of looking at. This map, these are geopotential heights. And so these are the height lines. And when you center and put the pole at the top about it, then you can begin to kind of see what's going up in those latitudes way up to the north. And here's Scandinavia. There's, Norway, Finland, Sweden, all underneath this monster ridge. And as we have said time and time again, if you've got a ridge, you got to have a trough. You throw up another ridge, and it's over under this one where we had the 100-degree heat recorded at that Siberian weather station in Russia. And then once you've got this ridge, you've got to have a big, deep trough to correspondingly keep the wave train in action. And then, we've got some lows that are kind of undercutting it. And then this could kind of scoot in tropical storms if that happens. But wherever you've got a hot spot, you've got to have a cold spot. That's just how it is. So this is kind of where the warmth has been across Siberia and kind of rather scattered throughout, well, not scattered, but fairly widespread across North America. And Greenland is chilly, as is much of the Middle East, North Africa, and much of Europe and Eurasia, also on the cool side, as is Eastern China. But as we look out, let's go out a couple of days as we move into the first week of July. North America warms up, and Siberia stays warm, but not as warm, but then the cold spreads through Europe, Asia, and North Africa. It's just kind of a hint out at what may be coming. All right, NASA preparing to crash a spacecraft onto an asteroid's moon. Not the asteroid itself, but a much smaller companion body to see, why not? Let's make a movie about it if we can alter its course. So that's something that NASA's playing with, and I don't know how many movies, but probably more than I can count on my two hands. I might have to pull out the toes here, but in altering the course of an object that would eventually imperil the planet were their orbits to intersect. A Pleiades cloud, or a Peleus cloud. You can see those little shield clouds on top of a thunder shower. We'll see those occasionally, and often, if the sun is right, you'll see an iridescent look around that. And that is often, well, it is an indication of explosive upward development. You almost get this shock cloud or a scarf cloud along the top of the cloud as it begins to billow upward. And now that I pointed that out to you, I know that you'll begin to see it. All right, Ryan Mao, Saharan dust will head up the Mississippi River Valley all the way into Canada during the next 5 days. It is amazing to see a cloud of dust come off the coast of Africa, across the entire Atlantic, and in 7 days arrive in the U.S. Hurricanes do and can follow the same path simply because of they're trapped in those steering winds. Look at this little dust. May even impact Manitoba and Ontario. Certainly enough to put a little haze, a little orangish yellow haze into the sky and color the sunsets red. But then the second slug of it doesn't look like it gets quite as far inland because the westerlies will kind of be a little bit stronger to keep it off to the east. There's another look from the Weather Channel, and this next slug is on its way in. And the opacities we saw of this very top image right in through there, that's kind of what it becomes very difficult to artistically render that. But that's kind of the opacity that you're losing maybe half your sunshine, maybe a third of your sunshine from this dust as it moves on through. Risk of severe weather today, tomorrow. from northern Kansas on through the Michigan area, the lower Great Lakes states, but otherwise just some thunder showers. And then this video I thought was just kind of fascinating. Yeah, Robin, that is an impressive cloud of dust that you generate artificially through the gassing of or burning methane and natural gas in some of these, fracking locations or wherever they're mining, creates an updraft, very powerful updraft. And then if you have dry sands around, that this updraft can eventually begin to create and ultimately will its own circulation. And if the atmosphere is still in the surrounding environment, this updraft gets an opportunity to really get established. And the cool thing is somebody nearby to actually video it and share it. There's some cool rock falls from the. Let me see if we can't get in there because I wanted to do this yesterday. This was video that's over on Instagram, so we're going to have to pop over there of the rock falls in and around that Owens Lake area, just in the southern end or the northern end of the Mojave Valley. But it was a fat six, and the shaking continues. We were looking at some of the shake maps, and they're impressive. So I'm really concerned that at some point in this area, this 6.0 will be followed by probably something much, much larger. And then we get even up here into Nevada, and there's another swarm of quakes to the tune of 3,000 quakes over a 7-day period. And this has been going on for the better part of a month. So something's up out west. And, this guy's not right or not wrong. 20's 20 every second. But wait, there is more. All right, kind of the stories over at Weather Underground, and it is National Lightning Awareness Week and month, and there's been a lot of that. Florida leads the way in the states with the most lightning, and that just kind of makes sense because of where they are. The weather is conducive to that for so many months of the year to see that kind of obnoxious weather, and trust that there won't be those 16-second long lightning strikes that could occur in Salt Lake and then strike down in Denver. I mean, that's how big that lightning strike was. That's impressive. All right, still terribly hot across the middle part of the nation, but not unusual and certainly not record-breaking. And that is only an indication that there's some cold weather right behind it. We tend to kind of leave these kind of contrasts to the seasons of fall and spring, but here we are decidedly into summer, and they're still in play. So where we have the clear skies is obviously right now where the heat is. Up to the northeast, there's still a northerly flow, so the lakes are kind of cool. And finally, New England cooling off after a numerous days of near or record heat. And then thunder showers developing across the Mountain West, where it is not quite into monsoon season, but down across the Sierra Madre and these western ranges of Mexico, as the moisture feeds in from the Gulf and then hits up against these mountains, and then it's drawn up to the north. And those are always comfortable days, where in the middle of summer, we end up with some of these big storms. This right here, just north of Lake Tahoe, I thought was a little unusual to have these clouds blowing off to the south so fast. It's appropriate for the upper level winds, kinda, but their speed to me seems a bit excessive. And if we were to throw a weather service balloon up in that direction, I'm sure we'd probably find a little bit of anomaly. And that is rain for the Sierras, and that's always kind of good, as long as we're getting rain. The lightning, not so good because there's so much dead firewood. New Zealand's been having a lot of earthquakes too, and they've had some famous quakes over in that area, Tracy. That Christchurch quake was a wee bit on the scary side. And there's no shortage of volcanoes over there too, if I'm not mistaken. And this, no ma'am, but very close. Just some street flooding that receded as soon as it stopped. We can't take more soon or we'd be in trouble. That could be, no, that's not Risa. But nevertheless, yeah, I know Risa got some good rain over in Texas a couple of, I think Monday night. That was an impressive storm. All right, there's the rains in the Mountain West, and finally some good rains back down to the southeast, where they've just about rendered their drought issue a non-event. And even some snow, yeah, but the higher elevations, you got to crest about 12,000 feet, maybe even 13 or 14,000 feet. The other option is that the filters on the radars are just left in rain snow mix, and above an automatic altitude, they're just saying it could be a frozen precip. we've got the technology to do that now. All right. Oh, I haven't even finished reading this, guys. The drought's still going on across southern Colorado, northern New Mexico, if not expanding, where there's been some pretty good relief over portions of. I didn't really want to click on that in portions of Texas and Oklahoma, and then it's kind of been thinned out a little bit, well, quite a bit across the east. Another place where it has further developed because they've only got enough rain to kind of keep up with the evaporation of the current demands is New England. So we'll watch that one develop. All right. As far as what's going on, we've got probably, uh, let's just say that I think as we get over the next 10 to 15 days, the West is going to stay kind of cool, kind of unsettled. The heat will kind of come and go. It's not really going to get a good anchor until maybe the 10th of July. The heat will just continue along the deep south as it should this time of year. And then there was one opportunity as we looked a little bit farther on, and this one isn't done just yet. It was right in through here where the models were trying to pick up a little bit of a tropical storm. And maybe in this latest run, it's lost. Yeah, it brings it in, but this is so far out. This is already the 4th of July that, and then it tries to bring it into the middle part of the Gulf Coast. And then maybe some little snows up in the higher elevations. But otherwise, it's kind of more just status of the quo for the next while. We'll do precip real quick because what I find is that there's still some places that we've been talking about where the risk of flooding remains elevated, and that mostly Alberta. On the eastern sides of those Canadian Rockies, there's a bullseye of about 5, 6, 7, 8 inches. Even farther north, as we approach the Northwestern Territories, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches worth of rain. And of course, the seasonal rain, the jungle rains going on in the mountains of Mexico, where it's that same kind of precip. Otherwise, it's probably from Missouri northward to Minnesota and maybe in and around Lake Winnipeg, where those higher precips could be. All right. What do we have? Is Gaia perturbed? Do we have to ask? I mean, really? Do we have to ask? There's something out of balance, and I think we're kind of all aware of it. And for many, many topics, we're probably at a 0 hour where we can only push the issue a little bit further before we get some additional pushback from the planet or from the planetary spirits who don't necessarily have to be attached to the physical, and they can come along and provide experiences to get us to wake up. And who's to say that COVID in one form or another hasn't been a part of that, because we have seen very clearly the Himalayas from New Delhi. We have seen the canals clear up in Venice. We have seen what we do on a day-to-day basis just by living our normal lives. We've gotten a very nice vision of how great an impact we have on this planet. So I think as we try to reopen, which probably isn't going so well, we kind of had that talk on the coffee break show this morning, that we really need to retool our economy. And is that even possible if we're locked down? I think there are some things that can be done in a lockdown situation. And that's probably more idea based, inventive based for the guy who's got a garage, or the husband and wife team that's got a garage, and they can create devices. They can create, concepts and begin to bring them into manifestation. But they'll go nowhere unless society is allowed to receive them. And that, for me, has been the big hindrance to humanity's progress for a very, very long time. And I would like to see that resolved as we try to come out of this COVID-inspired lockdown, is how we could fix ourselves during this time out. So when we reemerge back into the world, that it can ultimately be a better place. Yeah, that's what free energy. That's probably Ryan, I'm guessing. We don't need green energy. I'm sorry. There's not a lot that's green about solar panels and wind. That's just another way of collecting mechanical energy or photoelectric energy. We need limitless energy devices. They've been invented. They've been around for a century. And if I had anything to say about it, we would have contests. We would have an engagement on a national scale to bring these technologies and these tools and these ideas out in front of people, so we can figure out how to not repeat the mistakes of the past. And that would be my idea. Yes, sir, he says. All right, guys, that's probably it for the afternoon for the Thursday. Friday, we're going to do a little more of this South Atlantic magnetic anomaly because that may be, and I'm getting that kind of that gut confirmation that that was why that lightning strike was so incredible and world shattering, as far as the biggest the longest and longest duration lightning strike. That was just a phenomenal event. I'd like to have seen some clouds up there as to what was the foundation for that kind of an event. And then the other aspect is how far above the cloud top did it go? Where was the connection from the cloud top into the cloud and then out and down? I've got some questions, and so I've got a little bit of time to figure those out and bring you some answers tomorrow. All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you tomorrow on another episode of Scott's Weather. So in the meanwhile, just do like me, keep looking up.